Well, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, WeatherBrains episode number 1027. 1027. This is for September 22nd, 2025. This is the weekly show for weather geeks, dweebs, nerds, dorks, and weenies. Yes, indeed. And this is the pre show, the magical part of the program where we typically do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time we say really, really, really outrageous things. All right, the equinox today, 119 Central, about 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of darkness, sun right over the equator. So we are into fall officially, and kind of been watching the tropics here, trying to heat up. Boy, this Gabrielle really ramped up today. It's a Category 4 tonight with winds of 140 miles per hour. Thankfully, passing east of Bermuda and then kicks out to sea. I guess they'll have to watch this in the Azores, but other than that, no threat to land. And we got a couple of tropical waves that are coming up behind it. And the one thing about the Gulf, it has been so quiet, dead this year, but the Gulf has been untouched, meaning there is a lot of latent heat energy. So we'll see what happens in October. We got Kevin working a blow pop. That's outstanding. You got to unmute. You must unmute.
How are you tonight, sir?
I'm good. Down here hanging out at Studio B, Alabama Weather Network. You need to come down here and get a tour one day.
Is that your deodorant stick back there? What do you got? Old Spice? Old Man Old Spice?
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
It's not
all right,
Axe.
That's what I figured. All right.
No. Axe has been banned from the place here. It's basically a sewage treatment plant. The worst, it's sixth grade boys and Axe. You know that combination. It's not good. You wind up with BO and Axe. It's really bad. So.
Yeah, I'm helping out with Little League this year, so I know what you're talking about.
I saw some fifth grade boys today, and I immediately discouraged them in the strongest possible language to avoid Axe at all costs. The girls will not run in your direction; they will run in the opposite direction. It is not love nectar. It doesn't work. If you're going to try something on the edge, you have to go back to the '70s. This is before your time. There was something back in the '70s called high karate. And what should? Why are you laughing, Bill?
I thought you were going to talk about English leather. That was a sin, James man.
No.
I thought he was going to say brute.
Yeah, now brute.
Well, I've got a story about brute, but no. What you do? Get on YouTube after this show. Don't tune away from us now, but you get on YouTube and you search high karate.
Oh yeah,
and look at these 1970s commercials, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The 1970s high karate commercials were the absolute greatest. So I wish they still had high karate around. I mean, you have to literally beat the girls off of you as they run. In the masses of girls will run toward you. That's the message the ads were screaming back in the 70s. So
you're saying Axe body spray is not the same thing, James?
No, it's not. Okay. And I've got a horrible brute story, but I can't tell it on the show here. It involved a trip to Daytona Beach, Florida.
Even in the pre-show?
Yeah, we do say outrageous things. This was in the summer of 1976. I had just turned 20 years old. This is how old I am. I turned 20 in 1976. And me and some friends went to Daytona Beach. And I've never been much of a drinker guy, but a couple of the guys went down to a local pub, and they came back after having too many cocktails, and the whole thing it was just bad. I mean, the whole thing was just bad. And I cannot bring myself to tell the story, but it involved brute, and I'll just leave it at that. It was bad. Here it is all these years later. I'm still thinking about the night we had to get out Brute as a tool. So we
That was a tease right there.
It is the pre-show, but
Brute is a tool. That's a good title.
Yeah, well,
but
can't
no.
use it.
But
That's the rule.
I do want everybody to go to YouTube and watch the High Karate commercials. We all need to laugh these days, and I think that will give you a good laugh. So there you go. So we're I got to get me a shirt, one of these new network shirts. Bill's got him a hat.
You had. I thought that's what you were wearing today, James. Is that not what that is?
This is a plain Jane red shirt.
I've got one upstairs. I'll go put it on. I got a black polo, and it's really awesome. The red T-shirt is nice too.
I will order one tonight.
And this is the little cap. It's kind of cool too. I got a red cap and a camel cap.
Makes you look 20 years younger in that thing.
Is that what it does? Yeah. Okay. All right.
In my case, it doesn't help me, but it helps you.
I thought that's what that fancy shirt you had on there was. I couldn't tell what that logo was in this little tiny screen. I got a mouse pad too, James. Look at this mouse pad.
Really?
How about that?
Well, I'm more excited about this. So at 6:30, I went across the street here, and I don't know if you can.
You got
see
John wings? You did
yes.
not. What flavor did you get?
Hot honey.
Was Miss Natalie there, or did you?
No, it was a new employee there, but there you go.
Well, probably because of us, Miss Natalie's retired.
God, I need to find that joint.
Yeah, well, it's
literally right across the street from our new location here, and it's a lifesaver. They are the absolute greatest.
And it's open all the time except Sundays. So it's like it really is a great place to go. They have so many. If you want a pork chop, you don't get good pork chops, and I bet James hasn't ordered the pork chop here.
No, I need to.
The pork chop is
I was. By the way, welcome to our television viewers. I was so sad when I changed locations because we had a Shell station with really good Hunt Brothers pizza right across the street, and it was sad. But in this urban setting where we are here, I was delighted to see that they have a place right across the street called John John's, and they have these great wings and apparently pork chops and everything else, hamburgers. I think they got everything over there. So
great cheeseburger. We went there to celebrate National Cheeseburger Day last Thursday.
Randy, can you hear us okay? I'm sorry about all this foolishness. I feel horrible here.
No, that's all good. No, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You're
all right.
You're not wearing axe, are you?
No.
No.
You have to screen share the graphic we made for Randy, Jim. We made our first WeatherBrains graphic for the network. It's really pretty.
Oh wow! All right,
Scott Martin let's start using those things.
Let's get this thing going here. All right, here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. That's the real Bill Curtis. That's not a fake Bill Curtis. That is the real Bill Curtis that says that every week. Welcome to WeatherBrains. This is the weekly show for weather geeks, dweebs, nerds, dorks, and weenies, and others. Episode number 1027. This is for September 22nd, 2025, which means that this is the first official day of fall. The equinox was today. So let's see if Jen, let me ask you a question. What was last night? Do you remember last night? Do you remember?
I used it on my show yesterday. I'm gonna be quiet.
It was the 21st night of September.
Yes. That's outstanding. Yes. I knew that with Jen dabbling in radio as much as she does, that somehow she would pull that song from 50 years ago by Earth, Wind, and Fire that every year on the 21st of September I play multiple times because you got to remember the 21st night of September. I mean, it's sad when you don't. So
that's
there
right.
you go.
It's a great song.
What happens if the equinox is on the 21st, though, James? I guess that works.
Well,
I guess it
typically is. I think that's kind of the reason they picked that day. I don't know. We
I
need to
thought
get
it would be
Maurice
like
White on this show.
the last night of summer would be more appropriate.
We need
Like
to
your
get
last
Maurice
hurrah.
White on this show and ask
Is
him
that
about that
possible?
song.
Let's do that.
I know people that know people. So,
yeah.
Jen, where are you at an undisclosed location, or can you disclose your location?
I can disclose. I'm still in Birmingham. I'll be doing a lot of Alabama Weather Network stuff this week, and just hanging out. Been eating barbecue. Went to Jim's barbecue Saturday. It was awesome, and had more barbecue last night with Bill Murray. We went to Dreamland Barbecue, so I am getting my fill. It's been great, and just hanging out. And I'm here for about another week, and then I start heading south.
Well, you need to go to John John's right
Yeah.
across the street here. We have a new place for you there. So
we'll take her Wednesday.
Awesome.
That's outstanding. All right. So we got Rick Smith on the line. Rick is the WCM at the Weather Service in Norman, Oklahoma. Rick, how are you, sir?
I was when I left today. So
show title. That's a show title.
No, it's all good. I mean, I think we're in our first day of autumn, but it's our second or third summer or fourth. Just kidding. It's not fall yet. It's been hot. It was hot for football Saturday, hot today, but hopefully some rain tonight will cool it off a little bit.
So did you go to the Auburn, Oklahoma game on Saturday?
I did. Our office does weather support now for both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. So got to be at the game, got to hang out with Ashley Gann, who's a meteorologist from University of Auburn. She's been on the show before, and she was visiting, got to meet the Lee County, Alabama emergency manager. So they had a great time until sometime in the fourth quarter, I think. So
yeah, that was a controversial game here. I'll leave it at that. Yeah. We don't want to turn this into football brains, but no, Ashley is great. And I feel bad that the last time she was on this show, that was the one night that I was collapsing on the floor and I had to have emergency surgery that Monday night at midnight.
We talked about that.
We need to get her. Yeah, I mean, of all nights, that was the night. That was so odd, but we need to get her back on the show here. So let's go up the road to Tulsa, Interstate 44. James Adelot, you ever gotten a speeding ticket on Interstate 44?
Oh, I have to think about that. I wouldn't be surprised, but I can name a lot of other highways I've gotten stopped on before I-44. Does that help?
Have you ever gotten out of a speeding ticket, James Adelot?
Oh, heavens, yes. Yeah. I slid through a intersection right in an ice storm right in front of a policeman at 2:00 in the morning, shined the flashlight in my face and said, "You ought to know to slow down on this." I said, "Yeah, I ought to know to get to work before it starts, too."
Oh, yeah. I distinctly remember driving to the TV station the morning of April 27, 2011 at about 4 a.m. They would have probably thrown me in jail if somebody would have stopped me for driving that way, but thankfully nobody caught me that particular morning. Let's go down to Troy Kimmel, who is in Austin, Texas. The heat of Texas is always among us.
There we go. 99 officially the high, both at both the climate first order sites here in Austin today. So 99 Camp Mabry, 99 out at Bergstrom. Will be a little cooler tomorrow, maybe about 98.
Okay, there you go. Break out the jackets and sweaters. The autumn weather is coming.
And we actually may hit 100 tomorrow. Because the thunderstorm chances go up here a little bit tomorrow night, and I'm wondering if tomorrow may be a little warmer than today here. So,
well, one way to find out. Let's see. Kim just joined us. Kim, are you there? Come in, Commissioner.
I am here being Norman, Oklahoma, where, yes, we are very excited for these rumors of fall. Very, very excited.
Rumors of fall. Rumors.
Yeah.
But look, October's coming. I mean, I'm telling you, before you know it, you guys will have an ice storm or something weird like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
that'll happen.
You never. Yeah. You somebody out there is going to be Troy or Kim or James or Rick. They'll wind up with some big crippling ice storm, and it's going to be too cold. But let's go to Bill Murray and get the show started. Bill, let's bring in our guests before they hang up on us.
Yeah, tonight's guest is a suggestion of our eternal guest panelist, Kevin Laws. Tonight, Kevin, the fabulous Sue from the National Weather Service in Birmingham, and among his all of his other jobs he always has. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Billy. I know the check's in the mail. I'll be looking for it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just keep you on retainer, buddy.
Okay.
It's good to see you, but thank you for loaning us Randy tonight. And tonight's guest WeatherBrain serves as the National Weather Service Severe Weather Program Lead, a role encompassing strategic planning, tactical execution, and ensuring operational consistency across all severe weather services provided by the National Weather Service. And prior to that, he worked in forecast operations in Indianapolis and Norman and Amarillo and Goodland. That place is familiar to you, isn't it, Kevin? Isn't that where you went for a little while? Were you in
Yes,
Goodland?
sir.
All right. Well, we want to hear a
little
full
bit over the
report.
summer.
We want to hear a full report on best places to eat in Goodland between you two here in just a minute. But Randy's primary interests are mesoscale meteorology and radar. And he's been involved in several test beds for new techniques and technology to help improve forecast and warning operations nationally. Randy, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I'm super excited to be here. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I kind of teased your career here a little bit, but kind of take us a little deeper. Go back into, first how you got interested in weather. That's always the thing we like to know when we get started.
Yeah, sure. That's a kind of a tough question for me to answer. I'm one of those that I don't have a specific weather event that got me into weather, I guess. So I don't know. Sometime maybe when I was 5 or 6 or 7, I looked out the window and there's a thunderstorm and I thought, you know what, that's pretty neat. So, and kind of stuck from there. So, I can think of several events probably growing up that really kind of influenced me. The Nashville, growing up in Middle Tennessee, the Nashville tornado of 1998 was one for sure, and it just sort of amplified my interest. And then from there, ended up taking a path and did some coursework at OU, and then transferred to the University of South Alabama in Mobile. So that's where I got my meteorology degree. And then shortly after that, I got a job with TEMA, the Emergency Management Office in Nashville, and worked with them for a little bit. And James, you may remember, I know it's been a while back, but we had a chance to bring you up, and you actually gave us one of the first presentations after April 27th, 2011. And this was, later that next year in 2012. And man, I'll tell you what, that was when you gave that to us at the TEMA office there for the NWA chapter. That was pretty awesome. You certainly got deep into what all happened there and the entire experience. And I think that stuck with a lot of folks there at TEMA and certainly the meteorology community in Middle Tennessee. So pretty awesome.
Well, you're very kind. That was I clearly remember doing that, and it was not that much. This was with a year or two after it happened. I think it was maybe 10 years ago when I was there. So yeah, we all have to remember why we're doing this, and it's about people. And I think sometimes we forget that. I'm guilty of that. We get hung up in these logistics and everything else, but you've got to go back to the people that we serve. And if you can focus on that, we'll be successful. But that was a great session. Thanks for the invitation. That was good.
Oh, it was super awesome. Yeah. So thanks for doing that. And then, like I said, Bill, from there, I went to Goodland, Kansas, went to Amarillo, awesome location, worked with Rick and Norman. Man, I miss the guys there, Rick, for sure. It was a really awesome opportunity there. And then probably one of the main drivers, Rick, was the heat that you just talked about, the summertime. Oh man, that's something in Oklahoma. So I'm up here in Indianapolis now, and it's not quite as brutal. So yeah, it's been a fun path.
Yeah. So take us back to that 98 tornado in Nashville. That was an interesting situation. I remember that day very, very well, Randy.
Yeah, I live west of Nashville, kind of northwest of Nashville, in Clarksville, Tennessee is where I grew up. So we weren't impacted quite as much. But what was interesting about that is just watching local news coverage, back when the TV signals were analog, so you could see the interference from the lightning when it would strike, it would cause a static on it. So, it's dating me a little bit, but it's back in time for sure. So, and it was one of those where to get any sort of data, you had to hurry up and get on a AOL dial-up connection to just quickly pull down a radar image, and then you'd have somebody else in the house that would say, "Oh, get off so we can make a phone call." And it was one of those type deals. So it's hard to believe it's been so long ago, but I was pretty young back then. So I was just getting into kind of the high school time frame, and man, what an event. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, there was a good commercial running today, about Google searches. The first Google search was in 1998. That's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
I count myself as an early adopter. I was a CompuServe user. Was it called CompuServe, right? Right, CompuServe.
Yep.
And then AOL, of course, and Kim was mimicking the modem and all those kind of things. So, but I remember that 1998 tornado day so clearly. It just was like it was yesterday.
Well, that wasn't long after the Birmingham tornado, was it?
That's
That
right,
was April 8th, right? Yeah.
It was very raw for us,
Yeah. Right.
and I had to go up to Huntsville for an event, and we were watching that, very, very acutely, and we're worried we were going to have active weather in North Alabama that afternoon and evening, and then we were watching live on CNN or something when this tornado, or the Weather Channel maybe, when you see this tornado going, toward downtown Nashville. It's just,
yeah, that year was pretty active. We
it
had those
really
standout
was.
years. 98 was for sure, and then it seems like 2008, obviously 2011. So, but yeah,
that April 8th, 98 day. James, of course, can speak to that in a lot of ways because, it was just one of those days when you knew something, you kind of thought something bad was going to happen, but it wasn't really clear. I went home that afternoon from work, ready to settle in and watch James and, the radar. And I clearly remember seeing a donut hole on the radar that night. I think that was the first time I'd ever seen that. And you knew something bad was going on. And James, what were you thinking when you were on the wall that night when that tornado was on the ground in western Jefferson County?
Well, it was night, and that's the thing. But I think the moment that kind of stood out, at the time we had a camera that was on the western extension of Red Mountain, or that overlooked Midfield and Fairfield and out toward Hueytown, and we saw just this massive outage of the power grid going down, and power flashes. And I'm thinking, oh boy. So that's when we knew that it was down. But even at that point, I wasn't so sure it was going to be an F5. I mean, goodness gracious. But we heard from Olshu, our friend, who was out there in it, and he started to, feed back some video by microwave, and it looked just horrible. And that they wanted me to fly the damage path the next morning because we still didn't know how bad it was until the next morning. So first light of day, we got in the helicopter, flew the path, and I said, let's go to Oak Grove School, and that'd be the first landmark, and it wasn't there. It was gone. And it just got worse as we kept on going down the path, and people were still down there in distress. They needed help hours after it happened. So that was not a good night. That was rough.
No, I can remember that night, the storminess, and there was lots of uncertainty. We just really, by the 10 o'clock news, you still didn't really know what had happened. You kind of had a bad feeling, but like you said, till you saw the morning news on that following morning, you really didn't get the scale of how bad it was. So it was a terrible night. So so Randy, you were at USA for your undergraduate. I guess you got to spend a lot of time with Dr. Keith Blackwell, who's a
man,
good friend.
yeah, Dr. Blackwell's so awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I did synoptic meteorology under him, and I credit him for a lot of what I know. Obviously, I carried that forward into the career. So just an amazing teacher, amazing person overall, and really the entire program there. Everybody involved was great. So that was certainly a good choice. Met a lot of great people. We stay in touch with folks that went all over the Weather Service and elsewhere in their meteorology career. So yeah, it was a super fun experience.
I met him. He was air pollution meteorologist for Jefferson County in 1980, and I, loved going to the Weather Service because I had been doing that for about 4 or 5 years while I was in high school. And so I showed up, one night as a freshman at Sanford University, and I think I was in the computer lab or something, but I drove over to the Weather Service. Hurricane Allen was coming, and go in the teletype room because this is where you want to go to be, when a hurricane's making landfall in 1980. And there's this guy on the floor asleep, like 11:30 at night. And I'm like, who is this guy? And I asked one of the Weather Service guys, I go, oh, that's Keith Blackwell. He's the air pollution meteorologist. He's a hurricane nut. and we became really good friends after that.
Yeah, no, he's great. So much to learn. And he just had his delivery was just, I don't know how to explain it. It was just calm and just such a depth of knowledge, and just the way that he delivered it in synoptic meteorology class there. I know he impacted a lot of folks. It certainly did me, but then everybody else obviously that graduated from there had the chance to benefit from that too. So yeah,
So
really
James,
enjoyed it.
here's where we let you imitate the sound of a teletype machine.
There's a few of us that can make that noise. Now, we did, when I interned at KTUL over on the other side of town here, they had removed the bell that the apostrophe sounded when there was a warning that came out. So you just heard the little apostrophe, and that's how you knew there was a warning coming out, because you just heard a very quiet, and you knew, oh, there's a warning. And then it would scroll up and start printing out the warning. And you were just sitting there, 56 baud, watching this thing just come in line by line, going, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Good times.
Yep. I have one in my basement, so I'm putting out an appeal for anybody who wants to help me retrofit it. I think it would be fabulous to have it hooked to James Spann's Twitter account. Have it.
It's only 56 baud. You're gonna have to go high bandwidth for that.
And anytime my teletype goes off, I know it's a tweet from James Spann. So, hey, but maybe we could put that in the weather office up there, James Spann. We could take my old teletype.
We need that. I like James 8 a lot. I could listen to the sound of that teletype machine, and I knew when a bulletin was coming. It's funny, and Troy, you kind of lived through those days as well. But
well, I've got one too. I've got two of them sitting right over here, 10 feet from me, and one of them, the ham radio
still
people
still working.
No, the ham radio people still have them operative. I can turn it on and sit there and type on the older one. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get on this thing, man. Yeah. We can put that thing by the wall up there and let you get your warnings off of it.
I will never forget though that there was actually a way where at the Weather Service they could do this at 11 West Oxmoor Road. They could interrupt the teletype circuit and manually type, and it would go out across the circuit. And J.B. Elliott did that. They saw a funnel cloud forming just southwest of the office, and they stopped the wire machine, the NOAA weather wire, and was manually typing that. I mean, how cool is that? I mean,
that goes back to it goes back here to Austin. I've told the story before. I won't mention who it is because people might recognize the name, but interning at the WSO at Austin many years ago during a warning event, a young man was sitting there, and Dave Owens was our MIC at the time. Dave's passed now, but really super nice guy in the mid and late 80s. And during this event, he is handing if you remember, it was a multi-parted form where you wrote the warning, and then you went the teletype and you typed it up from there. And this young man was sitting there as an intern putting this stuff in. And if you remember, it was a coded S that ended up triggering the bell on the teletypes, and it went off 10 times. Well, Dave Owens had noticed, I think when this warning was going out here in Austin, that he all of a sudden was realizing I'm not hearing a lot of bells. And he went over there, and instead of putting in the coded S, the young man, where the 5 Z's were, remember where those were what we saw, and then the S triggered the bell. Underneath the 5 Z's, he wrote out TENBELLS. And that was one time. That was the last time that ever happened. That young man always remembers that case. Someone in the Weather Service still.
So Kevin Laws, any old teletype stories as we turn into teletype brains around here?
Kevin's a kid. He doesn't even remember teletype machine.
Kevin doesn't remember that.
I was going to say I started in the 19th century, so we were way past that by then, so we're good. Actually, I was going to say, do you remember the days when we used to get on the weather radio live? I was a junior player back then, but I don't think I ever got a chance to get on there live. That doesn't happen much anymore either.
Yeah. Well, something else, Kevin, real quick with that as well. If you never had the opportunity to go to Fort Worth,
at the time, or any of the bigger forecast offices, and particularly the National Severe Storms Forecast Center. I was at the federal building in downtown Kansas City a couple of times with them in the communication rooms, because it was very important. Those 56 baud or whatever teletypes, there was a lot of Raywark machines sitting around, and the warning had to go from the tape over the Raywark. You would interrupt the Raywark, and then you would have to decide if it went on another state's weather wire. And it was walking tapes around, and that worked really well back then. But to this day, I still remember sites, especially at National Severe Storm Forecast Center there at the Federal Building in Kansas City, where I was there a couple of times when paper tape was flying all over the place. It was really pretty amazing watching that happen with the telecommunicators of that age, with those paper tapes breaking in and sending those things out as they came out. Really amazing.
I always loved JB's story he told on here about the communicator on the night of April 3rd, 1974, when apparently the gentleman became overwhelmed because, there was probably so many messages and the systems were overloaded. And he grabbed up a bunch of tapes and started waving them over his head. And Mr. Ferry,
well, Rick, you appreciate
smoking a cigar in the office. So
there was
looked at him and said, "Get hold of yourself, man."
There was a person here in Austin one night. There was severe weather outbreak in West Texas, and he decided, it was his last night, by the way, and he decided to hand type his retirement statement on WeatherWire. And and there were people trying to interrupt elsewhere. It was comical at the time. And somewhere in that file cabinet over there, I think I have a copy of that statement that he hand typed on the WeatherWire that night, with people trying to interrupt, and West Texas was getting severe weather. But those were the days.
Yeah, that's for sure. So Randy, take us through your current job. Tell us about your, what your assignment is, and what's a day like for you.
Yeah, Bill, I live the dream life, I guess. In a lot of ways, really good opportunity of kind of filling behind Kevin. I know he did this job temporarily, so Kevin and I still chat quite a bit, and he keeps me on the rail sometimes when I don't know exactly what's going on. And it's been really good. It's been an opportunity to step out of the forecast and just day-to-day operations forecast wise, and get more into the strategic big picture, and try to see kind of what direction the Weather Service is going, and ways that we can try to see what we can do with all the technology that's emerging, and all the different research projects and results that come out of the Severe Storms Lab, and just be a part of that, and have to get that into operations. It's not an easy process sometimes, but it's one of those things where all that's very important, and it's not a straightforward answer sometimes of how all that gets into operations. But the end goal is just to try to figure out how do we provide the best service we can that keeps up with where the technology is at the moment, and where the research is at the moment. And and so that's a big part of it. And so I get to have daily meetings, it seems like, with just various people, from Severe Storms Lab to SBC to forecasters, SUs, MICs across the nation, and it's just a really fun opportunity to really connect with people when it comes to severe weather, and try to problem solve our way through what the next steps are in the Weather Service.
So what are the biggest things you're working on right now?
Yeah, I think right now one of the big things is threats in motion, and I don't know if you all have heard very much about that, but it's just a little bit of a new modern way to. Yeah, I know I think that's been a topic a few times on WeatherBrains. Thinking back.
It's kind of like we've been so excited about it for so long now. It's kind of like we're waiting on it to get here now.
Yeah, I was the same way when I got into this position. I'm thinking maybe if we just do this, and that, we can make this work, but there's just so many complicating factors about how to try to figure out how to work it through dissemination and what the end user sees from that it's not as straightforward. And I know Kevin's wrestled with this quite a bit too when he was in this role. And it's just, I think we've got some momentum. We've been working on that. Keith Sherburne, my counterpart in the Severe Weather program, and I have been working through some potential solutions for that. Still not an extremely straightforward path, but there's at least we've got a lot of talented people across the Weather Service that are really working hard at this to try to make this happen. And it's probably not going to be an immediate thing. As far as the timeline, it's just tough to tell exactly when that'll be. But, for those that don't know about it, what it can do is basically just a polygon warning that actually follows the storm a little bit more closely, instead of these intermittent polygons that are issued that follow the storm. So it's a little bit better for equitable lead time because the warning itself sort of stays in pace with the say a long track supercell that has a tornado. And in the end, when we get that, I think when we get that out to where that can feed the systems of dissemination, it's going to end up being a better system. But it's going to take some smart people to make that, way smarter than I am, to make that work. So we're lucky to have that talent, the Weather Service.
In a way, Randy, how we get that from, and we found this out in Kerrville, Texas, not that long ago, how we get that warning to the public, because Weather Service can hit the button and it'll go to weather radio, but that's about it. You don't know what the hell has happened down the road with people, how they have gotten that warning, how they've reacted to that warning, and what they're going to do about that warning. So that's what worries me a little bit, is that we've got to do some work in upgrading NOAA weather radio. That's got to happen, and it's got to happen tomorrow. But it ain't going to happen tomorrow, but it's got to happen quick, or we're going to have more.
Hey, Troy. So yeah. we have the software to do this already.
Okay.
And like Randy said, this question's for you, because this is where Randy and I both stumble, is this dissemination part, especially when it comes to weather radio. How do we get around and work with, weather radio is not going anywhere. We all know that. So how do we work with it to have updated polygons? And I think that's where we sort of got stuck. And, because we don't have multiple transmitters out there.
Right.
We have one per section, per area, right? So you can only send that one message, and you only get so many bits to send it out on. Right. And so we've worked with several weather radio folks. We work with Bruce a lot, and they're ready to sell radios that have GPS chips in them. There's not a problem there either. So it's just a matter of understanding the technology to get it to the weather radio and not have it go off every single time your polygon updates, every minute or every 5 minutes or whatever. Obviously, that's not going to work. So we've got.
And I understand what you're saying. It's not going anywhere, but it sure as hell better be going somewhere. And we've got to do something in modernizing that. And then I'll say this: the Weather Service has to have an app, and I'm waiting for the day to come when I can pick up my phone and call Ken. I'm just waiting on this, because we have got to do that. It's one way that we could, if we had an app, by the way, that only produced information for basic forecast information and warning watch and advisory information for the general public, we could stay in the mission and not upset too much the private sector. At this point, we've got to get beyond that 1995 crap. We've got to move weather radio and the National Weather Service in the modern age. It's the only agency that doesn't have an app. We need an app, and I think the app would help in getting warnings to the public as well, in addition to weather radio and other methods, and NOAA weather radio.
It's interesting, Troy, on that line of thought. Part of the challenge is that we do have so many different modalities to which warnings have to get out to people. And so thinking about the weather radio challenge, it's the most archaic but reliable of the technologies, so you don't want to leave it behind. I know this was something I worked at NSSL for a long time and helped to develop threats in motion. And we had a dissemination workshop where what was really fascinating to me was seeing at the time, and this was early COVID era, so we were all remote. We were doing like whiteboarding with a like virtual whiteboard, but we were trying to piece together what is the full dissemination system and what are the technologies involved in it to get warnings out. And it was fascinating to me how there weren't two people in the room who knew how everything works, from getting the warning actually encoded on the front end through the various systems and all the agencies that touch the various dissemination platforms and all the technologies involved. Two people at the end of the line. And that was, that to me said, gosh, it's going to be a little while before we get this out there. So Randy, I'm wondering if you can comment on, you are telling us that there's sort of this, this minimum standard that we need to abide by. The do no harm, at least, sort of standard is what emerged, in my experience, touching this technology. Tell us a little bit more about, it makes sense to have warnings follow storms, but what do we stand to possibly lose if we do mess this up? What could it look like if this goes out half-baked and we don't have all these systems in line, what would people experience if we're not paying due diligence here? Because I get that it's frustrating, but is there also that piece that's important to think about?
Yeah, that's an important part of it, Kim. It's, if you can't, that's the thing. We know where we want to be in the Weather Service, and we know what we want to shoot for. But to make that happen and potentially cause some issues for, the legacy dissemination, weather radio, and things like that, that's the concern. And I guess I didn't really realize when I first got into it, but it's just you start to see, well, we can't just necessarily move forward with that until we make sure that we're not leaving other technologies behind. So that's a big part of it too. And we think that, and the same for, things like fee with probabilistic. That's the same thing too. How do we marry the two? What does that look like going forward? And it's not an easy answer. But no, you're exactly right. It's as much as you want to progress and move forward with some of it, it's just you can't. Some of that, with some of the dissemination systems, it's potentially a pretty big deal, and you don't want to cause any sort of harm from.
Well, it was interesting today, Randy. It was I noticed a public information statement from headquarters today in reference to, I think it was Arapahoe County up in Colorado that is getting partial warning for weather radio, getting that all set up. But my concern is how many counties we just doing it one county at a time. And I realize, and I know exactly why we're doing this, doing it because exactly what Randy just said. We don't want to screw things up. But if we do that for parishes and territories and counties one at a time, we're going to be doing this in 2100. So that's I noticed that today, but I understand what you're saying, Randy. You don't want to screw with things.
Yeah, and I don't know what it looks like, and of course I'm just speaking from my own opinion here, but it would be nice if we could just move forward with some of it and somehow simulcast that technology to where it continues to feed the legacy systems. And that may be a possibility, but that itself has it has its challenges itself to try to figure out how to even do that. I don't even know. And I don't have the technological knowledge. I just have the phone numbers of the people that are super smart. So at dissemination and, throughout central processing and the Weather Service, and they're working pretty hard on it. So maybe we can come up with some sort of solution like that to where we can progress still fairly quickly, but just not leave behind some of the legacy systems. But, it's still, we're going to have some pretty high level discussions, I think, on that coming up. Well, we've had that, but it's just we want to continue to push that along. I think we've got the right people in the right places now to make that happen. So, as long as Kevin's there, we'll have all the answers. We'll have the solutions. So,
it just seems like this is such a perfect application for a mobile app. I mean, it just absolutely is built for this, and it may not, be as easily translatable into all the other legacy dissemination systems, but we're all used to apps now, and we all have mobile devices, and just seems like we've been waiting on this. How many years, Kim, have we been talking about Timmy?
I mean, my gosh, we were doing this development. It was 2020, like when we had the dissemination workshop, and there'd been an in-person workshop before then to really try to socialize the idea with different distributors. What we were so fascinated by was just the whole community of folks from the private sector, from broadcast, from emergency management. Everyone said, this makes so much intuitive sense. This is great. and these are very interrelated systems. I like the point, that you and Troy have made, that having an app would be a really natural way to push ahead with this. And, seeing how it's all evolved over time, it might be that what we need to think about doing is maintaining a little bit of legacy warning for those legacy systems, and have the threats in motion that's disseminable through the more advanced platforms. As long as these things don't conflict, it would just be a more rapid update that you could expect from particular systems. Part of I think it's a little hard for some of the developers, especially, to let some things go, because part of what had motivated this technology too is the idea that you could disseminate all clears. So you could let people know you've been cleared out of the warning. You don't have to just sit in your shelter. And I can tell you, having gone into the field a lot, one of the big things that we hear, and Dr. Laura Myers in Alabama talks about this a lot too. What you hear is people say, okay, I got the warning. And then I was just left alone. Like, I didn't know when I could come up. I didn't know when I could. There are people who are in charge of like hospital facilities and stuff, and they need some sort of signal to know that they're okay. We're really so focused on the, this is the you're at risk that we could also be giving some sense for things have moved on from you. And for a time, we got really mired in a conversation about, well, we could have maybe, there's times where you have storms kind of all over the place. So maybe you can be removed from a warning, but there's more that could come in short order. So you don't want to hard all clear. Maybe we could do like a soft all clear and a hard all clear. And I think we've gotten so mired in the making it perfect that maybe it's time to think about, can we make something that's just like good, it's a little bit better and deal with the rest of the problems as we go along. I don't know if maybe I saw you nodding, Troy, I saw you nodding. That seems to resonate with some.
Kim, you're exactly right. I mean, the way we were looking at it is let's just build out a brand new system that will run in tandem with the old system. Don't touch anything, leave the old system. It works most of the time. So let's just leave that alone and let's brainstorm and think about something brand new. Let's use the CAP system. Let's use 99 vertices. Let's explore the world of apps. And, there's a lot of developers out there who are willing to work with us on that. And then what I thought was, and Randy and I have talked about this many times, is the analogy is like the old TVs. Remember, we had the analog and digital TVs. Well, one day, finally, the FCC said, well, the analog TVs are no longer going to work after this date. So, maybe a decade from now, but you give people, plenty of notice. And in the meantime, weather radios can sell with the new formats and new GPS chips. And, I think that's right where we ran into the stumbling block is, if you had two separate weather radios, one that worked in analog, one, let's say, worked in digital space, they wouldn't work at the same time. So it would have to be one after the other. And that was sort of where we ran into because we kept running into those transmitter issues. But, another issue that we had, and I'm just thinking about everybody and trying to serve as many people as we can is that, the smartphone issues. And we know that there's a lot of vulnerable communities that deal with smartphone issues and a lot of service areas that have bad weather who are not that great. And, and weather radio does serve those areas where the cell signals aren't that great. I was surprised to see a map of weather radio towers versus cell towers and how much they don't overlap. And so that gave me a little pause too, that we didn't necessarily want to rush into it, but I think that's where we sort of left off. Randy, you probably can correct me, but I think that's where we sort of that's where we sort of landed when we stopped working on it. So.
Yeah, Kevin, and there's, some of the conversations have moved a little bit beyond that, but we're still kind of hung up on that. And it's just trying to figure out what to do to get the right people together to make this happen. So it's a big challenge. And, exactly to Kim's point about how the precision that we want to get to for the all clear and for making sure everybody on the downstream side of the warning continues to get, has about the equal amount of lead time. The concept's there, but it's just how to enact this in such a way to where we make it happen is just, it's really tough. And, it's probably going to come down to something that maybe an app related. That's the new system you're talking about, Kevin, to build something out that feeds some sort of app, whether it's private sector or whether we end up with an app someday. I don't even know what that's going to look like, but that's the world we live in. 2025 and beyond is the digital world where everybody's on their phone, they have apps, and that's just the way that people are used to getting information, and we've got to keep up with that.
Is this with all of those challenges noted, is this sort of in a bit of an indefinite holding pattern for now? If so, is there something specific that we're waiting for to get it booted up again, or do we not even know?
The timeline is at this point, it's not really clear. It's just a matter of trying to figure out what priorities we have with other legacy systems, and then where does this fit in with that? And you only have so much manpower and so much resources to dedicate to that. I think that's a big part of it. So it is a priority for sure. It's a very high priority, but it's a matter of there are a couple other things with our systems that we're really trying to work through now. And then where does this fit into that? If we make changes to this system, does it impact what we want to do for threats in motion? Do we go this way or that way with it? It's just, there are technological challenges with it that are beyond my knowledge it's just, you just kind of have to stack them in priority, I think is kind of where we're at with it right now. So I don't know. Optimistically speaking, maybe we could come up with some sort of solution in the next couple of years. I think that's pretty ambitious. Obviously, it's just going to take beyond that because we got to work with the folks on the weather radio side too to see what does this look like, and when we can get it to that point. And it's just it's 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 frustrating in some ways because you're trying to pull all these different resources and all these different people together into one and really try to get together and just try to knock out whatever solutions we possibly can come up with and then take action on that. And that's where we're at right now, is still trying to work through that process. So it's just
I want to ask you, Randy, to reply to this, but obviously something else as well is we've lost so many years of experience in people so far in the 9 months of this year that's got to affect it. I mean, I'm not asking you to respond, Randy, but at the same time, there's no question about it. I know we've lost people that with years of experience and knowledge, they're gone now.
Yeah, I think a lot of fields deal with that, just no matter in what circumstance it is. A person's career maybe 25, 30, 35 years, and then
yeah.
And that's just an issue for a lot of fields. It's when they leave,
yeah.
That's a big loss. And so you have to have the talent from the lower ranks come up
but
and
we
fill that
were
void,
unique in a way, Randy. We lost
Yeah.
our experience in the course of a month and a half.
Yeah. And the good thing is there's a lot of really smart people in the Weather Service that are coming in now.
I know that.
And man, that's so nice because it's you see good people leaving, but you see really good people coming in, and it's just that part's really good.
James A., you were going to say something?
Yeah, we're talking about the debate between app and NOAA Weather Radio, and I don't know what the number is. Maybe somebody has an idea what percentage of people who would figure out a way to upgrade their smartphone, but would have zero desire to cough up the money for a NOAA Weather Radio. And this gets back to what Troy brings up about critical thinking and priorities and just being self-sustaining, even in a little way.
But I also think I really believe that this is, and maybe I'm wrong with this, Randy and Kevin, but we need to keep weather radio. I'm saying you keep NOAA Weather Radio. We modernize it, and we bring the phones in with an app that concentrates on local forecasts. By the way, I'm mentioning local forecasts and local warnings for protection of life and property because that is the mission statement of the National Weather Service. We keep it in the mission statement, and there's not one person in the private sector will be able to argue with me on that. Now they will, but I'm saying I think we need both.
But I think I agree with what James is saying. People will shell out $700 for a new iPhone tomorrow and won't go down and spend $29.95 at the Walgreens to get a NOAA Weather Radio. It's kind of insane. So Kevin, or maybe Randy, somebody asked me this the other day. What is the penetration of weather radio in households? And I guess it varies by area and by threat. Do we have a national? And Kevin, what's in Alabama? What's our, what's the uptake on weather radio in our area?
Unfortunately, it's pretty low. Even after,
like in the single digits, or
no, it's I think since April 27th, it's ticked higher. Now I don't know where it is today because you get that sort of spike for a couple of years and then it wanes and then you're back to. But regardless of that number, you're making an excellent point, and that is either you're engaged or you're not. I don't care if you have a smartphone, weather radio, whatever. So we're trying to figure out how to get to the people who aren't engaged, and if they don't want to buy a weather radio, it's probably for a reason that they're not engaged. So that the chances of them putting the app on their smartphone, probably nothing, right? So it's, without WEA, that, some people can't figure out how to turn off maybe. It's a very difficult problem to get these folks engaged because they, for whatever reason, they decide to live in Alabama and take a chance on that. And, Oklahoma the same way. It's like you live in some of these places, and how is the weather not at least a part of your daily or weekly routine to take a look at? It's beyond me. But we're all in the business. We all share it. But there's just people out there who just run around.
Well, but here's the thing, Kevin.
Their phone and yeah.
Here's the thing. Sexy. No weather radio, non-sexy.
I disagree, Troy. I think it's extremely sexy. I love my weather radio.
That's what I'm saying to the public, though. I mean, to the public to some degree.
I get it. I mean, I've been in love with my weather radio since November 1976. But, and Ken, we just started this weather network, and we have a fabulous app that has an image that spans tie and suspenders, and over 100,000 people have downloaded it, and it comes defaulting, to every weather service warning.
Yep.
And they get them. They're going to get alerted. Now they can turn on their do not disturb or whatever.
Bill, you're making my point though. You got 100,000 people who've downloaded it. How many people?
That's only 3% of the people, or 2% of the people in Alabama.
Right.
It's a very low number. I guess every little bit counts. And this thing, this app is fabulous.
Yeah.
It will alert you in seconds wherever you are. It follows you. It gives you lightning within 8 miles. This is the future.
Let me ask this: how far away are we from a satellite failover on emergency messages like this? Cell phone data doesn't work. I mean, from iPhone 15s up, you have satellite backup to text out. So how far away are we from being able to have some sort of priority message in by a satellite?
That's a great question, James A., and something that we need. Because these systems are vulnerable in, high stakes environments when communication systems start to fail.
Yeah, we need to get Neil on here at some point, because this is a topic he really enjoys, and I'm not going to speak for him on it, but I do know that there's a lot of conversations about leveraging the CubeSat constellations to help either as a redundant backup or to shift onto those. Weather radio right now is the way that we distribute those things is archaic, and it's part of why they're so costly. It's like literal copper wire, maintenance is a huge fraction of our dissemination budget. It's like insane. So yeah, that's a great point, Bill. And let's needle Neil. I understand though he might be confirmed soon. So we'll if we can maybe I can try to get him on to say goodbye to us at least before his confirmation tonight. I'll see.
Awesome. And Kevin, nothing's easy. Just the upgrades to NOAA Weather Radio created some problems, and the Birmingham office was instrumental in catching part of that. Right? Can you talk about that for a second? Because wasn't it Jason Williams who helped fix that problem that developed as part of this modernization?
Jason Holmes,
Holmes.
Sorry, well, we are modernizing, right? We're going from copper wires, which we can't even get phone companies to work on anymore, to more cellular service. But we had some bandwidth issues that need to be increased, and to make sure the messages were being cut off. But the guys here were instrumental in getting their equipment hooked up to it when we ran a couple tests behind the scenes, and we've realized that a certain cell company we needed to increase our bandwidth with them. As soon as we did, they got it fixed. So it was a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch these guys do their work. But just the fact alone that we're modernizing weather radio and spending the money to do that tells me it's going to be around for a while. So I think we need to certainly look at how we modernize it and bring it in. But I still say we in the meantime we can still build out a new system that works, with the apps and other things. So I think we can run a simultaneous system. And Kim asked a good question: is it stalled? Well, we have the software with the hazard services software. It's in there. It's written in the code. It's just commented out for now. And so I really think if we can get this dissemination figured out, it should be pretty smooth sailing. Because I think, what have we done 12, 13 years in a row of hazardous weather test beds on threats in motion? So I think it's been tested to death. We're at this point, I think we need to start testing some dissemination that would really be productive, I think, going forward.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to test, Kevin. As you know, some of our conversations with simulation is try to figure out how to make that test actually happen. So we're on it. We're gonna try to make it happen. But man, I'll tell you what, it's definitely a brain twist to try to figure out what the right path is for that and get some solutions. So it's a fun topic, but yeah, hopefully we'll get some results here pretty quick.
The crowd here can't wait, Randy. That's for sure. We've been talking about it a long time. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
we've been excited about it the whole time. But talk about warn on forecast for a second. And,
yeah. Oh man,
and
that's
what's going on with it, and what sort of game changer is it going to eventually be?
yeah, that's exciting, Bill. I mean, that's one of those that's more straightforward because we don't have the frustrations of that obviously as much, and so forecasters are using it more and more. It's becoming more routine for forecasters to integrate in their meso analysis process. Storm Prediction Center leverages it quite a bit. But really what it is, it's a downscale model. It's ensemble all the way down to the storm scale. And so there's been some successes. Rick can speak to this too, about even in the Norman office is one that's had a lot of successes with it. I remember working at the Norman office. We had the Elk City tornado back in 2017, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but not every case is like that. So it's not perfect, but it's certainly a step in a direction beyond what we've had with modeling in the past. And there's times where it can take a cell and begin to model it downstream in such a way that we can boost our confidence in our analysis to say, hey, this thing's going to continue. It's going to be a threat downstream for another, in that 30 to 60-minute window, certainly, and even beyond that, the 60 to 90-minute window. We can give us a little more precision about what's going to happen, so that we can put something into NWS chat, or throw a graphic out that says, here's the kind of a threat area that's a little bit downscaled from the watch, but is a little bit more than what we give with the warning. So it kind of fills that space in between. And we've had a lot of success stories with that lately. It seems like increasingly so, with pairing your traditional meso analysis with, skilled forecasters that can interpret the warn on forecast and be able to kind of put a message out that says, this would continue even beyond the time frame that we have the warning at this point. So very promising there, and they're just working extra hard on the developers at the Sphere Storms Lab have worked really hard on making this, put so much work into making this work, even beyond what its initial phase was too. So it's really helped the forecast operations in the Weather Service, and I think that's really going to be a thing going forward too.
And Randy, you and I were both in a meeting last week, was it?
Mhm.
I think.
Yep.
With people from the lab, with social scientists, with people that are looking at the back end of this, to what to do with that warn on forecast information. How to craft pre-warning graphics or watch to warning gap filling information. How do we get the product out? How is it disseminated? I mean, there's real work going on with that. I mean, right so far it's just been kind of a patchwork of, well, let's just draw a graphic and see who gets it. But it is one of the more exciting things that we've had in a while, and it's good, like a lot of things that we've seen in the test bed and other developments lately, to have a team of people, not just a bunch of meteorologists looking at it. There's a lot of people looking at the problem and trying to help us do it the right way.
Yeah, right. And to build on that just a little bit, Rick, I think in the Weather Service, we've operated consistently for most offices. Everybody's kind of on board with this now, is that if we know something and, our meteorological analysis tells us something, then we want to communicate that somehow. Consistently, how we do that, we're not quite consistent yet. I mean, we're just still trying to figure out the right path forward for that, I think. And, you guys at the Norman office have been very innovative with that. Several other offices have too. I can't name them all, the ones that have come up with unique ways to take this information from warn and forecast and put it out into some sort of message. The idea, I think, now is just to not let that opportunity slip by us. So we have the data now, and we can have that as part of our analysis, so we kind of get an idea of what's going to happen in that critical 60 to 90-minute window. And so in some form, we need to get that information out, whether it's just a quick chat, an NWS chat to let our media partners know, or if it's a graphic, or if it's some sort of heads up special weather statement or something like that. I know you guys have done quite a bit of that at the Norman office too, but hopefully in the future we can be a little bit more consistent with what that looks like.
What we learned, right, from social science, thank you, Kim, was that we needed something to bridge that gap between watches and warnings. And for a while, that was sort of the buzz phrase. But it's realistic too. Let me pick on James Spann. He's not paying attention, but he's big into the hospital world. So how long, James Spann, does it take hospitals to enact their safety plan once they get a warning? How much lead time does Grandview Hospital need versus, say, somebody at home?
Well, 12 minutes won't work. Let's get real. I mean, you got a 444 bed hospital and you got a 12-minute lead time. Do you think you can put everybody in a safe place in 12 minutes with that many people? And that's just the patients. That's not counting the clinical employees, the non-clinical employees. You need at least an hour really to do it right, or at least 30 minutes. So, and it's the same thing with mobile homes. We not talked about trailers. What are we going to do about people that live in trailers? And that's a whole nother issue, maybe a topic for another day. But there's some specific needs where you need more than 12 minutes. There's specific situations where you need more than 12 minutes. And healthcare is one, and trailers, that's another one. And what are we going to do, Kevin, about trailers? What are we going to do?
Yeah, I was thinking schools too. There's a lot of applications for that, and I think that's the part of it. But the biggest thing is, I think we've got to work with the mobile home community, the manufactured home community, trailer community, and there's an education part of it too. But we've got to make sure that they have a plan and they're willing to enact it. And I think a lot of that goes into planning and what they will do, because I think I hear it time and time again out on the road. We see it on surveys and other things that people just don't have an adequate plan. They don't know where to go. They don't most of the time in Alabama it's in the middle of the night. It's pouring down rain. There's thunder and lightning. Are you going to really go outside and lay down in a ditch, or do you have a substantial plan that may take some time? And at 2:00 in the morning, I got to get up at 7 to get to work. I don't have time to fool with this, so I'm going to turn it off the weather radio and go right back to bed. So we've got to overcome those challenges. Very difficult, right?
And again, a bunch of pinheads will get on television. You must leave your mobile home now. Well, what if you don't have transportation? What if you don't? And a lot of people live in trailers, don't have a running vehicle, and they can't leave unless they go on foot. And so, we have to do better in the weather enterprise. I'm just so tired of weather professionals that are condescending to people that live in trailers. I wish I had a trailer when I was in 5th grade and 6th grade. I wish I had one. My lifestyle would have been so much better and so much easier. But we just got to do better for them in all these situations you talked about. So yes, just part of the challenges of what we do, and we've all got to get better.
So Randy, talk about how the remote mesoanalysis program has worked, and what a difference that's made.
Yeah, Bill, that's one that Keith and I in the program have been really excited about. Keith has been a big part of that, and the way that it works is that it sort of effectively surges some of our talent across the weather service into where the weather is happening. So, you think about the way it used to be, it's 122 offices across the country. We'll use Kevin's office, Birmingham, for an example. You get a big severe weather event and they're overloaded. They got a lot going on and they can handle it. They do well. But what if somebody that is a severe weather guru in, say, Hastings or El Paso or somewhere like that could assist? And it could provide some of that expertise and mesoanalysis to take a little bit of the load off of Birmingham, and also just to have a second set of eyes on that. And that's kind of what's been going on. That's a big part of what this RMA program has been about, this remote mesoanalysis program, and it's been very helpful in that sense. And so what it does is you may have some really talented severe weather geeks, so to speak, that are in offices that it's sunny and there's really nothing going on. So their forecast, their shift load is lower, and they can focus on a weather event that's going on elsewhere and provide that support to other offices too, just to kind of help them out a little bit and that provide that subject matter expertise. So, the way it works in the weather service is folks that are interested in it can sign up for it and participate and volunteer their time and help out other offices. And it's really worked out well, because sometimes, I've even been in this situation before too. I've been on the receiving end of it, working as forecaster in Indianapolis before my current position, where, I'm working radar, but I don't have a whole lot of knowledge of what's going on with the mesoscale environment. And I don't have a lot of time to look at it. And I know I've got, a forecaster that has the skill and that knows exactly what they're looking at and kind of can dive into it in detail. that's at another office that can help out. And so they're in a chat program kind of talking to me, and giving me some advice as to what's going on with the mesoscale environment, even beyond what some of the baseline products from SPC are. So it sort of supplements all that. It's just a way to better leverage our talent across the Weather Service than what we have in the past, and we've got the ability to do so now. So we're doing a better job of that.
So Randy, when we did our first show nearly 20 years ago, James led it off with, we have too many severe thunderstorm warnings. And I think he would probably tell you tonight that he thinks we still have too many severe thunderstorm warnings. And they do from time to time seem to be a dime a dozen. What do you think about that? What do you say about that? I know you can't criticize the organization probably, that you lead this portion of its efforts, but how do we make them more relevant and make them count and have people at the Dollar General, as James says, react when they hear them?
Well, it's a good point, Bill. It's something I've always been interested in, the false alarms for the lower end severe thunderstorms. So, I mean, there's a couple different ways we can tackle that. One is anytime a thunderstorm produces lightning and thunder, issue a warning for it, just in case. And that's not realistic. If we do that, we're going to have a really high false alarm rate.
Mm-hmm.
So at least we're not quite to that extreme, but there's that gray area sometimes where it's tough to know exactly where you're at with a severe thunderstorm. And so I'll make the comment, I'll just say based on, the knowledge of the environment is super important. And radar meteorology itself is, it's only going to get you so far. I think we all know that. Kevin knows that, and some of the work he's done at the Birmingham office, I know a big part of that was them knowing the environment, knowing it well to lower the false alarms. And that's a huge part of it. I think that's just an extremely important part of it. So when we have our talent better leveraged to where we have people that are really looking at detail in the mesoscale environment across the nation, then it gives us an opportunity to inform the warning forecasters in the best way possible, to give them confidence not to issue or to issue, depending on if they don't know based on the environment and they're on the fence. Well, that's if we bring everybody up with our mesoscale analysis skill and we have people that are helping and surging into these weather events, that's one way we can approach that. And because that's, we don't want to issue a warning for every single thunderstorm that isn't a threat, and say that it's going to have quarter size hail or larger and it doesn't. So, or damaging winds and nothing happens. It's by nature, it's going to happen some, but we want to try to minimize that as much as possible. And I think something I'm very passionate about is really pushing that idea that if you know the environment really well, you can make the best warning decisions based on the radar data that you possibly can. And that's where we want to be, I think, as an agency. So we do really well with it, but we're always trying to refine that and get that to where it's, a consistent way that we operate.
Birmingham.
Let me ask a question here. Do people do anything when they hear a severe thunderstorm warning? Does anybody do anything when they hear a severe thunderstorm warning? I know it's a social science question, but I in my circle of people that are not meteorologists, they're not weather people, they don't do anything. They're a dime a dozen. And goodness, if we have one that really does have 1-inch hail and 58 mile per hour winds, I have to go way beyond just the standard warning and tell people, all right, you need to really take this seriously because this is a severe thunderstorm. So that's my question. Do people do anything? At least where I am, no, they don't do anything.
And that's a big part of it, James. If people aren't taking action, that's not the desired response we want. So, and that's an important part of the false alarm is to try to work on that side of it too. I think one thing that's been very interesting, especially for the particularly damaging thunderstorms, when we get into the baseball size hail, the 80 mile per hour winds are greater, those are setting off the phones, and I think that's unique. So people wouldn't get that necessarily, all the time. And those are the ones that are particularly damaging and destructive. So at least we've taken a step in that direction, I think, and that's been helpful. And we didn't do that, say 10, 12 years ago. That wasn't a part of the way we operated. So we have that now. And I think that's been very helpful. But yeah, that lower end threshold, trying to figure that out. And, and I think that's a big thing that we can continue to focus on and try to figure out where we can make sure that it's the most meaningful possible.
Yeah, same thing. What really frustrated me early on was, we would pat ourselves on the back and, oh, we got a warning out. Yeah, we had damage. And without really thinking about the consequence of all the ones that were issued that didn't have damage or any kind of consequence to them. And, our goal, what's the goal of issuing the warning? The goal is not to verify it. The goal is not to, see if it produced. The goal is to get people to do something. You become your own mini social scientist at that particular point, because you're asking somebody to take some sort of action based on what button you're pushing, right? And so when people fail to take that action based on, too many warnings or a warning overload or whatever it may be, we failed. I mean, it doesn't matter what happened weather-wise. That's just the secondary part. The failure in the mission is those people who didn't take protective action because of, whatever the reason may be. In this case, we're talking about, being overloaded with too many warnings. And I think that was big, in a part of the stuff that we did here, a consequence of us lowering the warning volume for tornado warnings. We also lowered the volume for severe thunderstorm warnings. That was, which we never even focused on, but that was just a consequence of lowering both. But as James pointed out, I mean, just getting somebody to take some sort of action based on a severe these days is probably pretty rare. You have certain people who will do it all the time, but we don't. I don't ever hear of anybody taking any significant action. So it's unfortunate.
Well, you have to, you've got to ascertain your risk and take appropriate action. Even for a low end, I'd say low end for a base severe thunderstorm warning. James Adelot's pointing out that we've had big fatalities in base severe thunderstorm warnings. Tugboat accident, being the example. We get trees that fall on houses. Folks asleep in bed, and a car gets a tree that falls on it. And we wonder, why is somebody driving around in a severe thunderstorm warning? And Jen, you're pointing out something. You wanna talk about that for a second, Jen?
Yeah, I just saw this article earlier today that there were storms yesterday in North Texas, Denton County, and one person was killed from straight line winds. They were in their RV. So, I mean, it's just sad.
I certainly changed my behavior. Anytime there's thunderstorms of any type, but especially when I know that it's warned for severe, and I'll evaluate that storm on my own knowledge and communicate that to my family and friends based on what. But it gets my attention when I see that yellow polygon for sure. And I wish, I hope that everyone, that we communicate with will at least take them seriously enough to, make some change in their behavior based on what they're doing. We're stressing all the time about, even just watching for vertical development in the clouds, in their outdoor activities, because that first bolt can get you with lightning.
Yep.
It doesn't, we had a lady with a bolt from the blue. James, what day was our test last week? They had this Ring doorbell. The lady was just watering her plants out on the front porch. I mean, literally the sky was blue. And there was this huge lightning bolt on the other side of her, and it was caught on the Ring cam, and she sent it to us, and it was a beautiful example of how even a distant thunderstorm, because Drew McCombs measured how far away it was, James, and I think she was in like Glencoe or somewhere, and the storm was up in Gadsden, and it was 8, 10, 12 miles away. And there was this storm that produced this bolt out of the blue that could have killed her if it had hit her porch instead of somebody else's porch. And you gotta take action based on the weather. And I'm grateful that I was imbued with that fear at an early age, because it's followed me all my life, and I take it seriously, and I've tried to influence all the people around me. And we've got weather ambassadors all over the enterprise that do this. And we're a little crazy. I get that, but we make a difference. And
but you got to remember, Bill, you're a weather guy. And most
No, I
people are
know,
not weather people. They have a whole different mindset about this. And it goes back to what I said in Huntsville. And again, everybody gets all pissy when I say this, but I don't care. We have an overwarning problem. We have constant hyperbole from all different sources. People are bombarded every day, from the YouTubers, the TikTokers, massive hurricane to strike Houston on August 15th. No, it's August 22nd. No, August 29th. That's all over today. That's all you see. You watch the news. Code red, weather emergency day. I'm declaring a weather emergency day because we might see some thunderstorms this afternoon. And I'm not blaming the weather people. They're under pressure from their corporate overlords to do this. You got some weather service office that'll issue a severe thunderstorm warning for some routine run-of-the-mill storm. And I know that lightning is dangerous. I know that. But the question is, I thought we had a standard. 1-inch diameter hail or 58 mile per hour winds. Is that it or not? And if it's not, just issue a warning for every time there's thunder. We've got to get a grasp, those of us in the weather enterprise, on this constant warning fatigue problem that people have. It's an addiction. We're addicted to warnings and hyperbole and stuff. Nobody will ever say the weather's calm today. Nobody will ever say that. I will. And so we just got to get a grasp on that. And I'll stop talking. I'm sorry.
Well, you do a really good job, James.
Yeah.
Just communicating that. And I'm still waiting for you to issue our first code red underwear flapping up and down our legs day. So I'm going to know we're in big trouble when that happens.
Yeah.
But Randy, just one last question for me, and I know any of the panelists may add something, and James asks the really hard questions, but what do you see things changing in weather service warning operations in the next 5 years or so? What do you think the next biggest changes are, at least that you can tell us about?
Yeah, well, a lot of it I don't know myself. We're still really trying to look through that and to see what the next steps are. I think it's the technology side. It's a lot of what we've already covered tonight. I don't know what the future of apps looks like, but I know there's an opportunity for us to at least feed the data out to where end users that have apps or whatever else can parse that into something that may be useful to whoever has the app. So I don't know what that looks like exactly, but it's a direction we want to go for sure. Part of that's probabilistic. I know that's, I've tried to wrap my head around that, but it's one of those things where we know there's a difference, and we've already talked about this a little bit too, of individual sheltering, somebody that makes a decision in their home when to take shelter. And the lead time for that doesn't necessarily need to be as long. But then we've got these venues, we've got hospitals, nursing homes that have to make the decisions for when, to enact that. And we don't really have a lot between, and just to get back into this topic just a little bit, between the watch and the warning gap, that gap that happens in between the two is a hospital can't necessarily act on a warning because it's too late. And I mean, they can't just enact their severe weather plan every time they have a watch. That's a little bit too much. So somewhere in between, I think, is where the focus is in the future to provide more information on a consistent basis. And whatever that looks like, that may be this continuum of probabilities. Maybe that's what happens. And I don't know how long that takes, 10, 15 years or so, or we can get that just guessing. Hopefully it's not that long. Hopefully we can get some solutions quicker than that. But what that may look like is that you have a probability of it being impacted by a severe thunderstorm or tornado. And it may be really high if you're in the warning phase, and then it may trickle down to where, if you're just in an outlook for severe thunderstorms, SPC already puts out probabilistic information. So if we can just marry all that together in this one continuum of probabilities, that's been a topic too. Kim and others can really speak to that, how that's been really in the narrative for a long time too, and trying to figure out how to make the technology work with that. If we can ever get to that point, I think, and that's a priority, then there's a lot of good we can do with that, I think. And so that's probably what the future is going to look like, is this continuum of information that people aren't left with a void of information between when a watch is issued and when a warning is issued. They have something to make a judgment call and make a decision based on, what happens in between those two. And I think that's going to be part of the future for sure. And there's a lot of other technology, not to ramble on, but, I don't know what role AI may play in it. There's some opportunities for that to really kind of become a bigger player to help the forecasters with a first guess, and the forecasters would take it from there. And some of that conversation may become more. We may see more of that going forward too. So there's a lot of exciting things out there, but it's just trying to rein that in and figure out what is practical for a short-term win and what may end up being more of a long-term tough solution like threats in motion. That's where we're at with it right now. So. but we're always trying to listen to the end users, our media partners and the emergency managers, to know what they need and try to adjust to that.
I know Kim and I have worked on some of this before, and it's such a critical component, this continuum of probabilities. And you think the warnings, most people don't know the difference between watches and warnings. I'll say most. A lot of people don't. Could you imagine giving them a continuum of probabilities? And I think our job going forward in the foreseeable future will be out, educating folks on how to use those properly. You can't really do it through a number because people don't really understand a number as well as they do information. I think human beings really value being told what to do and not having to guess based on a number. So I think, Kim, you can certainly elaborate, but understanding your risk, the gain, the losses, and all those kind of things. I think that'll be a huge job for a lot of us going forward, as to being out there and communicating to folks how to interpret those and use them to their advantage, because it is an advantage to have those kind of outcomes versus just a yes or no. But again, they've got to understand it and really be able to embrace it and use it correctly.
Yeah. To kind of, sorry, Kim. I was just going to say something real quick and to talk about what Kevin's talking about a little bit more. If you take 10 people and you tell them there's a 40% chance of rain, how many of those 10 people are going to carry an umbrella? They're not all 10 going to carry an umbrella, or it's not going to be none of them. It's going to be a varied response, and that's probably not ideal, Kim. And I know that's your area, so I'm curious to hear what you think about that. But, just going forward, we need to know what those thresholds are, and that may end up triggering the more deterministic warning that's rooted in probabilities. That could be one potential path too. So, Kim, this is definitely your area. So I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, this is one of the interesting questions. And when I came into the Weather Service, this was something that I thought was really interesting, that was being thrown around as a concept, looking at thresholds. And I asked a question similar to what Kevin was just raising. Well, probability of what? We have so many different probabilities we're offering across the spatiotemporal scale, right? The whole event timeline. We have everything from the pre-event probabilities from like an SPC, spatiotemporal scale, all the way to, you could think about born on forecast probabilities, where it's about the environment and the producing storms over a certain period of time of a particular density, or however you'd want to define it. And then we could also have phi, which was the probability that there's a storm already existing. Given the storm that already exists, this one storm, following it and its progression, what's the likelihood that it will produce hazards downstream? And there's honestly at this point, there's a near infinite set of probabilistic reference classes we can offer. We're starting to toy with all kinds of stuff that our systems, now that we have ensemble-based systems, we can generate just likelihood of exceeding whatever threshold of, like low-level updraft helicity that you want, like there's indicators, right, for all these things. And like, I think the great experiment that's happening in the Weather Service now is forecasters being given these tools and seeing what they're putting out. It's kind of what Rick was talking about earlier with Born on Forecast. So we've got these great models. How do we take that and then put it out to people? So one concept is, maybe we can identify a threshold where people care and that there's an action that's tied to it. And I think my challenge in this for our field as a decision scientist is a lot of people's decisions aren't that cut and dry, and they're not that consistent. So there's some assumptions to decision makers having the ability to even derive a threshold that need to hold. And I know Kevin, but when Prob IDSS was coming up with the threshold concept, Kevin reached out to me and he's like, "Can we talk about how this would work?" And I was like, "I'd actually love to talk to you about how you think it works, because I'm not sure what this looks like." And he sat down with some really high-end users and was walking through, hey, we could put out this kind of information. What are your processes? And it was sort of foreign, the idea of the threshold, based on a probability of some atmospheric factor, right? Or a warning threshold or something. Like, there's so many thresholds that we could base decisions on. So I think in my view, I'm wondering if we can take something that's really complex, and just like we were talking about earlier in the conversation, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Maybe there's good that can come from taking these tools and finding ways to boil them down to sort of simple storylines. And that's a little bit of where when I left the Weather Service a month and a half ago, the Proud Ideas group that I was working with, we were sort of toying with that idea. Can we be thinking about narratives, creating some structure to all of this, where we're telling a story that's complete between, okay, starting with the SPC scale, and then we're evolving as we go on? Can we find a way to do that? It might be that AI helps us a lot with that. Honestly, I could see that being tremendous, because it's hard for forecasters to attend to making this all make sense as a narrative as events go forward through their whole forecast area. There's a lot that can go on, and neighboring forecast areas can have a lot of, there's like boundary things that happen between CWAs that there could be some really interesting things that could be done. Yeah, sorry for my ramble there, Randy, but I love the problem. I think it's going to be something that provides our field with a lot of innovation for years to come. My encouragement is just for us to take a deep breath and realize that it's, as much as it's a huge opportunity, it's also complicated, and that's okay. We can just take those small steps forward, wrestle with it, and make progress as we go.
Yeah, that's so well said, Kim. It's just it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. I know, talking about probabilities a little bit. One thing we did at the Indianapolis office when working on the forecast side there, from a winter weather standpoint, we just took a bunch of different kind of graphics that showed probabilities in different ways and just gave them to the emergency managers in sort of an IWT little breakout sessions and said, just tell us what you think. And the feedback we got from that was really interesting. I mean, it was just everybody had their opinions, and at least it was a start. At least we're trying to crank out this data and this information to give to them to say, here's what we can do, and you just tell us if this is useful to you, or if this one's more useful, or that one. And I mean, it's a place to start. And I think working with a social scientist is a big part of what is going to make this a success in the future, obviously. So that's, to get back to your point, Bill, that's going to be a big part going forward, working closely with social scientists to figure out all this big data, all these new things like probabilistic, which is a lot of information. How do we make this useful to the end user?
And I think, for example, a hospital, the probabilistic data is perfect. They will know how to use that. They can make good, sound decisions with that data. But you go to Fred that lives in a trailer in Benevola, Alabama, all he wants to know is, when do I leave? He's not going to sort through all of this probabilistic data, and it's this complicated set of users that we all deal with, and they're all important. But yeah, it's a huge, complicating social science question, and that's why we have Kim on the show to figure all of this out for us. But having said that, we must take a quick break. Nobody hang up on us here. We have to do picks of the week, okay? So just hang tight. But we're going to hear from Tony Rice and his astronomy report. We're going to hear from Jen and This Week in Tornado History. We're going to talk about the tropics. We'll have picks of the week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
Today marks the September equinox, otherwise known as the autumnal equinox in the Northern Hemisphere, the first day of astronomical fall. Equinox, that means equal night in Latin, when day and night are equal length, right? Actually, that's not true. Not exactly, anywhere in North America. Here in North America, the day when the amount of time the sun is above the horizon, closest to exactly 12 hours, comes at the end of the week. This is known as the equilux, or equal light. A little bit south of the Mason-Dixon line, your equilux day is Thursday. That includes the Pacific Northwest, the upper Midwest of the U.S., DC north into New England, and so on. And that includes most Canadian cities because they lie mostly near the U.S. border. Further south, including the entire Southeast, all the way out to the Bay Area and south, your day is Friday. The extreme tips of Florida and Texas, your equinox day is Saturday. For those of you living it up in the Caribbean, your equilux day comes on Sunday. On the same note, much of Alaska and all of the northern Canadian cities, your day is Wednesday. So why aren't the equinox and equilux on the same day? The answer, like many astronomical things, lies in our atmosphere. If not for our atmosphere, the equinox and equilux would be on the same day, but they aren't because of atmospheric refraction. The Earth's atmosphere bends sunlight, causing us to see the sun above the horizon before the actual physical disk rises and after it sets, about 2 minutes longer. This means we've got to wait a few more days, each one of those days getting shorter this time of year, before that sun's arc across the sky sinks a little lower enough to balance out day and night. But even then, it's not exactly 12 hours. The closest amongst the cities that I sample were Albany, Georgia, and Green Bay, Wisconsin, each just 2 seconds shy of exactly 12 hours of daylight. Anchorage, Alaska never gets closer than a minute and a half to exactly 12 hours. Northern cities are losing daylight at a much greater rate than the southern ones this time of year. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, a total of 9 tornadoes were confirmed on September 24th, 2001, across parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. One of those tornadoes moved through Prince George's and Howard counties in Maryland and hit parts of the University of Maryland campus. It was given an F3 rating. The estimated maximum winds were 200 miles per hour, and multiple vortices were reported with the tornado at times. The tornado began just west of the Hyattsville area and quickly strengthened. As it moved into the western campus of the University of Maryland, 10 trailers were completely destroyed. They were being used as a temporary office for the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute. Debris from the trailers was found 60 miles away in extreme southeastern Pennsylvania. For the National Weather Service storm data entry, quote, 4 of the 6 people inside the trailers were injured, 1 seriously. 1 staff member was thrown free of the destruction and was found in a dumpster nearby. Another person dug their hands into the carpet and held on as their feet were being pulled up into the air by the tornado. The other 4 occupants, including 1 child, took shelter under desks and survived. Tragically, there were 2 fatalities. Sisters Colleen and Erin Marlotte were visiting their father, who worked at one of the trailers. They had left by car shortly before the tornado hit, and the tornado picked up the car near Denton Hall and, quote, threw it either around or over an 8-story dorm. They were killed instantly when the car crashed into a wooded area.
So let's
continue to produce damage away from campus. In the community of Cherry Hill, $40 million in damage occurred at the National Agricultural Research Center. In Laurel, 6 classrooms were heavily damaged at Laurel High School. 3 people inside the school were injured by flying debris. We do have a detailed summary about this event and also hundreds more at tornadotalk.com.
Jen, will you accept my apology? I talked over your audio piece. How rude is that?
No, I had some little bit more pauses there in my audio. It's all good.
I'm just auto program. We're here, a little pause. You just go here, but our audio editor will cut that out. And those that listen, and most people listen, they will never hear my little boo boo here. So I do apologize. But let's look at the tropics real quick before we go to the picks here. We've got this thing that really ramped up. Gabrielle, this thing really looks impressive. It's a Category 4. Thankfully, it's passing east of Bermuda, and it's going to hook a turn out to the Atlantic, maybe affecting the Azores, but moving away from the United States. We have 2 waves that might develop, but it seems like they're going to want to follow the same general direction. So, Kevin Laws, I'm putting you on the spot. You're our tropical correspondent here. The Gulf has been untouched. What's going to happen in October? Do we have anything to worry about in the Gulf?
Well, sir, we were actually talking about that earlier today, and with all these East Coast troughs, good grief, it doesn't seem like we can get anything going even toward the United States, which has been a good thing, right? Above average year, and we've kept them all out to sea so far. But October's had tons of surprises. What's the old October surprise, right? We've had a couple Milton, Michael, a lot of M storms here in the Gulf, and have been caused a lot of problems over the years. So we'll have to keep an eye on it, but as long as this troughing stays in place, we should be good to go. But you know how it goes. 2 weeks from now, it'll be a whole different story.
Yeah, I think we can safely say the Gulf is okay through the rest of September, but October and November, we've still got to get through those 2 months, and things have happened. When was Zeta? Anybody remember Zeta? When was that one? That was late in the season. I want to say it was.
I can look it up, but I'm pretty
Halloween.
Sure around Halloween, October of 2020?
Yeah, it was the pandemic year, or 2021. Okay, we that one was horrible for us. We had no power for 3 days. I honestly think we had a longer power outage with Zeta compared to the tornado that actually hit our neighborhood 4 years ago. So that was, we can have some rough ones. So just don't believe it's over, but just be thankful for the fact that so far so good. All right, let's turn around here and do picks of the week. This is where everybody on the show is going to give us something that is really cool, weather-related, useful information. It can be data source, hardware, website, whatever, and something that maybe folks don't know about. So let's start with Troy Kimmel in Austin, Texas, who always has an amazing pick of the week. Troy?
So you think I'll ask for the foghorn tonight?
Yeah.
Don't touch it.
Okay.
Owen,
Fingers
who
off.
is the warning coordination meteorologist, and Randy, you know him, and Rick up at WPC, sent a note out, I guess, last week, which I didn't really get a chance to look at until the last couple of days. But the Weather Prediction Center is announcing an experimental product. It's the launch of the experimental urban rain rate dashboard. This thing is cool. And it's really a neat site. And I'm very happy that Austin and San Antonio are part of the 60 major U.S. cities that are part of this. It's designed, Owen says in his email, to visualize the probability of high rain rates that may lead to flash flooding in the next several days over 60 major U.S. cities. Austin, San Antonio, Flash Flood Alley included in that. This is really kind of a cool site to go look at. And so it is my pick of the week.
And all of these sites will be up on the website, weatherbrains.com. Commissioner Kim, I know you've got something good. Go.
Oh, barring something better, honestly, I will just share the a website where you can sort of monitor for confirmations, administration confirmations. I think a lot of people saw last week that there was this sort of unblock, a whole bunch of confirmations went through together and through the Senate, and there should be another tranche of them coming. So keep refreshing that. It's like watching for the white smoke, like coming, we got an administrator. Like it'll be really nice to have one. So we'll just keep watching that and think good thoughts for Neil.
Yep.
And hopefully, once he becomes the Pope, we can get him back on the show a time or two here. That would be. We think of all the stories we have missed. His personal stories. I mean, those are the greatest. But no, we will be watching that carefully. James Adelot, who's getting ready for the 9 o'clock news. What you got?
Well, my pick of the week is a picture a viewer sent to me, and it is a snowplow already driving down the highway. So throw out the persimmon spoons and the woolly worms. The snowplows are already migrating. It's going to be a winter.
Okay, that is breaking news. Hey, look who just joined us.
Whoa!
Look who just joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, the world
wow.
traveler. The world traveler has joined us. John, are you back on American soil?
I am. Am I allowed to tell you what airline did me wrong, or
we're going to stop this whole? We're going to stop everything and let you tell your story about your travel woes. You need to tell that whole story. Go.
Am I allowed to say the airline?
Sure. Listen, we're just talking between us girls here. Go.
Yeah, go.
Okay, folks. Saturday in Dublin, Ireland, there was a bomb threat of some sort. Somebody said they thought they saw a detonator in someone's luggage. They evacuate Terminal 2 completely. It is total chaos. And they keep moving people back and go back, James, go back further. And this goes on and on and on and on. Go back, Troy, go back. And then guess what happens? They decide to open it up with no announcement. This is like an Alabama-Auburn game with no security. There was no security at the Arnold James fan. It was not good. So we get in. It is mayhem. Some of the workers got ticked off and just left.
Oh, wow.
They just left. So trying to get a bagway to go up to the baggage person. You finally go through the Red Sea. You get it done. You're at the end. And then they say, you can't check the bag in because you're too close to your departure time, even though no plane's flying on the Dublin airport. None. Zero. Plus, people were landing. Here's James Aildon. He's landed. He landed into Dublin. He sat on the taxiway for 3 hours. People's toilets were overflowing. Not good. So I talked to some very nice people. Some Angels James fan came in and got to that part, went through the endless security. Oh, they found the U.S. pre-clearance. They just shut it down. So the line went all the way to Scotland. You could walk across the Irish Sea. Then when you finally part the Red Sea and you do everything and you kill yourself to get there, this great airline called, am I allowed to say it, James?
Yes. Call them out.
Aer Lingus. Aer Lingus does not believe in gate agents. There were no gate agents. None. No gate agents. No announcements. Nothing. So
how does this happen? How does this even happen?
It's just unbelievable. This story is like, who remembers Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? Who remembers that great movie?
It's a great movie. Yeah.
I lived it. I'll make this short. I'm sorry, guys. But anyway, so we're there, and then they cancel Minneapolis. I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then they cancel Philadelphia. Then they cancel Denver. But then they board 5 in a row. Do. And I keep waiting to hear Indianapolis, which had been delayed 15 times on the board, 14 times. And everyone was adjudicated except for Indianapolis. No one said anything. I think they literally forgot that flight was even alive. The crew was there. Oh, that was another thing. I talked to the captain. I said, what's going on? He says, well, they've got an airplane on this airfield. They're supposed to taxi here. We don't know where it is. On an airfield, we cannot find an airplane. Okay. So then he finally found the airplane. He says, we're trying to find a refueling. Apparently, Aer Lingus doesn't know where the refueling apparatus is. So finally, this is the key. This is the coup de grace. Here you go, baby. Here we go.
No.
And he froze. Gosh. He froze.
It's Cameron Nixon again.
The story around this woman.
Oh. Wow.
Like fire ants going.
John, you froze, and we lost the key part of your story here. So go back and start over from the key part here.
It's representative, and everyone just swarmed the person. And she says, I have to talk to the supervisor. So she gets on her thing, and she didn't really. She was going, Oh, when did that happen? Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, apparently it had canceled over an hour earlier, but no one told anyone that it had canceled. And she still didn't make an intercom announcement. So people are a little agitated. Would you be agitated, Troy Kimmel? Just a little agitated? So she just flies her hands up and she leaves.
That's good.
Yeah. She leaves. But she did do a little thing to help herself out. She brought the police. 5 minutes later, a swarm of police came to our gate. And they didn't tell us where our luggage was. Total mayhem. So we went to the endless baggage claim area to try to find our bags. That was joyful too. Plus, all the earlier flights that canceled, there were no hotel rooms in Dublin. So I pulled a James Spann. I want to call out my buddy because I was at baggage claim. I kind of said, I need some help here. Can you help me? I talked to some of the local Dublin folks. They had their bags. They start making phone calls for us to find us. 3 different couples took time out of their life. That's a good pay it forward story right there. And they found us probably the only hotel room in the whole city. So today I flew. I love Delta. I love Delta. I love you. Great service, great everything. Got into Indianapolis. I rushed down here to try to come on the show. Randy Bowers, I wish I could have been on the whole.
We missed you, John.
Yeah.
So it was just, they did. Oh yeah. So one more thing, James. So I get on to Aer Lingus when we finally get to the hotel room. What was the average wait time, James Aeldot? What was the wait time to talk to any human being on Aer Lingus at midnight Saturday night?
Oh gosh, you probably got right in.
So I'm going to bed. I'll figure this out in the morning. I don't know what else to do. I was spent, James. There was no energy. I had nothing. Zero. So that is
I
my
don't believe
story.
it. I don't believe it. You're John Gordon. I don't believe a word of that.
Yeah,
Wow.
these people need to know who you are.
I mean, goodness gracious.
Well, two things
John,
I'll say here. Number one, who needs Neil now? That's number one. And number two, tomorrow from 10 to about noon, we'll be meeting with the WeatherBrains lawyers, and we'll be getting all this sorted out. So that'll happen tomorrow. So.
That's right. There you go. Well, yep. John, get some sleep and go watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and just think about being at the Braidwood Inn with.
Oh yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Go. You're it. The floor belongs to you.
Lingus. Yeah.
My pick. Yeah. Yeah. Go to Delta. Anyway, my pick of the week is the UPS fog technique. All right. Everyone that watches WeatherBrains should review a paper by Randy Baker. It's called the crossover temperature. Is used by European countries, right, Randy? Randy, do you use the UPS technique?
Yeah,
Tell everyone.
The crossover technique, yep.
It works. You want to learn about fog, you want to be a better forecaster, you want to be a weather weenie. There's nothing better than learning the crossover temperature. It's used all around the world. Amen?
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
That's outstanding. John has come in here and invigorated the entire show here at the end. That's outstanding. We were keeping up with his text messages, and goodness gracious, this looked like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It looked horrific, and now we know that it was horrific. Wow. So we'll do another deep brief next Monday night. All right, Kevin Laws, give us a pick of the week. Go.
I don't even know how to follow that up. Always wanted the foghorn, but I found something good. So this week we've been talking about the Fujita scale and the history of it, based on some of the conversations we've had this week. And so, Troy, your neck of the woods, not quite, but close. Texas Tech has a great Fujita archival records, and go and explore those. You probably picked that before 100 times, and I don't realize it, but what a great site. It takes you through the history of F6s and all the F12s and everything we've been through all the way up to modern times. So it's a fascinating look at it. So that's the archival records, the Fujita archival records.
And again, that'll be up on weatherbrains.com. All right, Jen, go.
So I don't have a link. I'm going to go on a very small, sweet rant because I don't know how to do the other type of rants. So my rant is on, there is, as much as social media is awful and is just gross, there are some good aspects of social media. And I wanted just to give a good example, just as something kind. On Saturday, I mentioned that I did get to go to Jim's barbecue, and it was a lot of fun. And the two guys I went with, they are friends from WeatherBrains. They met in the WeatherBrains chat. And if it wasn't for social media, they would not have become friends. And it's through WeatherBrains that they became friends with me and followed Tornado Talk and became supporters of Tornado Talk. And now we're all friends. And so they pick me up and I hop in the back seat of the car. And I'm like, let's go to Jim's. And we're going down all the back roads. And I just said, I feel like we're chasing. It was awesome. It was so fun. And it just made for such a great day of just two really sweet guys that if it wasn't for social media and there's a positive there. And I think that there are positives out there. There are a lot more kind people than the awful people that we continue to be subjected to all the time. And I think that is by design, that it's just in our face 24/7. And what was great is we were sitting there and we were having barbecue and just having a good time, and none of us were on our phones. It was really amazing. And it was just awesome. We don't have to look at our phones. We could actually look at each other's face. And so I guess my pick of the week is for you to pick and choose what you read and what you focus in on social media. Protect your heart and put your phone down. Go talk to somebody, go look them in the face, and go be kind to one another, because that's more important than anything.
I would suggest that's some really good advice considering what's going on right now. That's outstanding. Wow, that is good. All right. So, Randy, top that. Good luck with you. Go.
Oh, man. That's a tough one to top for sure. Hey, I'll say, since we talked about the warn-on forecast, I think there's a lot of information on the Severe Storms Lab website to look at on that. That'll give some further description than what we're able to get into in detail here. It's not available for the whole CONUS at all times, like the HER or the GFS, or pick your favorite model. It's certainly not quite to that level yet. Maybe in the future, but when there's severe weather going on, you can go to the NSSO website, and there's a link there where you can actually look at the warn-on forecast data. And so if you haven't seen it yet, if you haven't played around with it, there's an opportunity to do that if you go to Severe Storms Lab's website on an active severe weather day. There'll probably be a domain, and then you'll have a chance to look at the data.
It is very useful. It is very useful. And if you've not tried it before, and that's a great pick, and we'll put that up on weatherbrains.com. My pick of the week, it is a piece about two 25-year-old men who were killed by lightning in the San Juan National Forest in Colorado. They went missing on September the 11th, and their bodies were found, and they had been hunting for elk prior to the incident. And that's just another reminder that I'm scared of one thing when it comes to weather, and it's lightning, and it's terrifying. The two men, that represents the 15th and 16th U.S. lightning fatalities of the year, and the first fatalities in Colorado this year. But again, I'll put the link up on weatherbrains.com. Bill Murray, what you got for us? Did Bill bail? Is he out?
Bailed.
Bill bailed.
I think
Bill said no, early morning tomorrow, so Bill bailed.
Bill bailed. Okay. Well, in that case, let's see. Randy, anything else we need to promote while you're here? Randy or Kevin, either one of you guys, anything you need to promote? Promote away.
You go, Kevin. You got one?
I would promote my social media, sir, but I don't have any, so take it away.
That's
good for you.
That's why his mental health is so good. He doesn't have to get on social media. Anything, Randy, we need to promote on your end?
A little far, but okay.
I can't think of anything. I'm with Kevin. I'm not on there too much. Social media, just talking about what Jen said. It's just having those real connections is super important. So.
Yep, it sure is. Well, listen, thank you guys. It's been a really good show. And if you're new to Weather Brains, we're typically on the air Monday nights, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. You can watch it live, the video version, on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/weatherbrains. But we know that most of you listen. If you watch, if you listen, thank you. If you want to get in touch with us, have a question about anything we've talked about tonight, send us an email. The email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a marvelous week, and God bless. It was a good show.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
It was great.
It was an honor to be here.
It was
really appreciate it.
outstanding. Great show. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,